You are listening to Serenity Radio Network on Jerry Royce Live Worldwide at PositivePower21.org. We thank you for joining us. You can also find us on Elation Radio. Serenity is a Christian-based multicultural empowerment station that focuses on the mind, body, and spirit. The program specializes in bringing to the listeners the very best from the healing arts community on the subjects of self, health care, spiritual healing, and kingdom living. Serenity Radio is sponsored by the Serenity Weight Loss and Detoxification Program. To enroll, contact Michelle Edmonds, a.k.a. the Godmother, at 404-445-8579, or hit them up on Facebook at Serenity Weight Loss. The next voice that you hear will be that of our awesome host. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday. Another one has arrived, and I hope you had a wonderful week out there in TV land. This is Michelle Edmonds, and you have listening to the Serenity Radio Network, SRN. And we got a wonderful show for you today as Friday winds down your very, very stressful week. We know you're having a lot going on. There's a lot of conflict in this world right now. And so we thought it would be real good for your soul to hear some good word around how to resolve some conflict a little bit better and a little bit more effectively. Home, relationships, at work. Before we start, let's cover this broadcast with a prayer. Father God, may the words of my mouth and may the words of our heart be acceptable in our sight. Lord, you are our strength. You are our Redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. And with that said, I want to give a shout-out to all of you and, of course, bring my host on the line. Hezekiah Brown, are you there, sir?
I am here. I'm president accounted for.
President accounted. That's what I like. That's a wellness warrior. Well, we thank you so much for this awesome information. Now, what I'm going to do, let me share this with you. Just before I signed on, I did get a question. And what I'm going to do is to let you just let it rip. And then we'll post the questions in the invite that we're going to send out to all of you that have joined us, by the way, so that you can see, you can answer the questions in the invite, sir, and everyone can see it. Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, that'll allow you to just use the time as you please. So I'm going to turn the mic over to you, sir, and you just let it rip.
Well, I'm going to just say good afternoon again, and I certainly want to extend my gratitude for Michelle for presenting this program, and not only that, but giving me an opportunity to talk about the things that I know about and talk about how to resolve conflict at home, at work, in the community, but also, too, about how to build relationships. As you know, the first show was about relationships, where we talked about some of the things that take place in a relationship, and I just will quickly review what it was for those that wasn't listening, is the fact that when people get married, and I want this to kind of stick with people because some things that I have to be repetitive about to make sure that you understand or that you don't forget. And this has to do with the relationship. You know, when two people get married, it's a little boy and a little girl who are getting married, who've never had to deal with issues before because in most instances, you know, their parents deal with those issues. But once you get married, you know, and that's an emotional trip that you're taking. And you've had some great times, you've had some arguments, but never anything that was substantial. So here you are now getting married, the little boy and the little girl. And if the little boy don't grow into a man, or the little girl doesn't grow into a woman, it's going to be absolute conflict. If you don't have children, you never raised children before, you never managed finance before in many cases, or you might have managed it just for yourself. So all of these things are what create conflict. So my suggestion to everyone as we start this program is simply put this way, that where you can, and if you can, the two of you should take a class on how to resolve conflict. You both will hear the same thing. You both will react to this the same way, to the same things. But if you have some sense of how it's done, and this is the reason why I'm suggesting this. The reason why I'm suggesting this is because we just don't know how to resolve conflict. We know how to destroy each other. We know how to get a divorce. We know how to separate. We know how to get advice from people who have absolutely no experience in helping folks resolve conflict. Most of the advice you get is telling you how to keep the conflict going. So please don't do that. So that was just a little nugget I gave you in a review of the last week's program. Now I want to give you just a few nuggets, and I will try to do that each time I come on. And the first nugget is that sometimes if you want to resolve conflict, you have to be in control of the conflict itself. And you have to be thinking about how to resolve conflict as opposed to how to destroy the other person. So one of the key things about resolving conflict is learning to listen. And you will hear everything I say, and every single thing that I do is going to be involved in listening. And I will repeat what I said a week ago. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth means we're supposed to listen more than we talk. That's just one nugget. The second one is the one that talked the loudest is very seldom heard. So I want to give you just a nugget here how to resolve a conflict and how to be in control of a discussion. Keep a legal pad with you, just a pad or something that you can write on. Even if you're stopped by the policeman, you pick up your legal pad and your pen, and when the policeman approach you and start to talk, you start to write and you start to listen to what he or she is saying. That way, most times, even policemen are surprised that you will start to write and you will ask questions and you're not angry. Because part of what it does, too, it takes your anger away. And so what you do is just start to write, he's going to ask you some questions or she's going to ask you some questions. But if you have a pad to record what is being said, it is almost like one of the things that's happening now with our telephone. If you have a recorder on your telephone, you can cut your recorder on and let them know it's on because it will limit as to what they say or do. And you want to do that. You want to be in charge. But when you're not dealing with the police department and you're dealing with even your spouse, or if you're a teacher and you're dealing with an irate parent, or you're dealing with an irate student, or you're dealing with a superior in your workplace, when they start to talk, you start to write. And you can slow them down in terms of what they say. So you are in charge when you're writing because not only that, but you are also listening. And when you have someone who is very excited, ask them one question as you're writing. You have to say, "Excuse me, would you repeat what you just said?" Then you start to slow the discussion down, and then you have people in your control when you start to slow them down. And if they're standing, don't ask them to sit, but just keep writing. Because sooner or later, what they're going to do is try to find out what you're writing. And then you can ask them to sit down. So that just is one nugget there. The second nugget I want to give you, this is something personally that I do. And I would encourage people to do this because we also are looking at how to make this a better world. How do we make this a better world? How can I become a better person? How can I help others? How can I extend myself to help others? Well, here's one of the things you can do. In my lifetime, I try to and would encourage you to follow this. Do one good deed for another person, or persons. It doesn't matter. Do one good deed a day. It makes you feel good. It makes them feel good. And it also is making a contribution to their livelihood. One good deed a day. And you don't have to know the person. It doesn't have to be a member of your family. It could be anybody. But strive to do one good deed a day for someone else, and you will see your life also change. The other nugget I want to give you is that it's close to Thanksgiving, it's close to Christmas, and one of the things that we do is we do a lot of shopping. And sometimes we go out of the city, the place to shop is the malls. And what we do is it's difficult to find a place to park. So what we do, we pull up when we see someone coming out, and we cut our signal on and wait on that spot. But in many instances, some guy or some lady, once they see you sitting there with your blinker on, and they will cut in front of you and take that spot away. And at that point, your blood pressure go up, your stress level go up, and you get angry, and you ready to physically fight at that point in time. So let me just give you a nugget so you don't get upset. When someone has the audacity to commit that kind of crime, to pull in front of you and put on the spot and see you sitting there with your blinkers on, you know what happened? That same person will get out and shoot you, or that same person will get out with a crowbar, get out and hurt you. So what you do when you see that happen, you just go to and find another spot. And I'm going to tell you how this works. And invariably, when you find another spot, you just take a good look at the person. Don't say anything. But when you go in the store and get in line, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in front of that same person who just got in front of you, who just took your parking spot. You're going to be in front of him. And that way, if you know that you're not going to stand there and have an argument with someone, you're not going to stand there and do anything, because it is a pre-planned thought that you're doing. When I go to the mall, if someone do this, this is what I'm going to do. And that will take care of that little problem for you when you go to the mall and someone put in front of you, someone take your parking spot. You don't get stressed out about it. Last one is road rage. There are so many times that people, I just read in the paper this past week where a young lady was shot in the stomach because of road rage. Let me tell you this about road rage. All of us get upset when somebody cut us off when they're driving. So when someone cuts you off, 9 times out of 10, maybe 100% of the time, think about this. The person that cut you off don't know you. So are they doing this on purpose? But just think about this. The person that cut you off is either late for work, late for an appointment, and some are just absolutely rude. And when they're rude, they will take that car and they will hurt you. And we all get upset when someone cut us off. But if you think about it in advance, if it's somebody that don't know you, are they doing this to hurt you? Are they doing this on purpose? It is somebody who don't know you but have a personal problem in getting to where they are. Now let me turn it around. We get in a hurry. We also do the same thing. We sometimes cut people off and we say, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Well, it's the same thing with road rage. So when somebody cuts you off, don't get upset about it. Don't try to take that car and run over them for this reason. The person that cut you off and ran past you, 9 times out of 10, you get to the next red light, they stop at the red light. So don't get upset about these things when you think that somebody's doing you wrong or somebody's purposely cutting you off. You let them go on. And you will be behind them, and they'll be sitting at the next red light. Now, that's just a few nuggets that I try to give you for the holidays and a few things that you think about. And I will now move into what I guess I feel is that to maybe give an explanation of conflict. But before I give an explanation of what conflict really is, I think I should say this, and this is to employers. Many times you have outstanding workers on the job that does what they're supposed to, good workers, good attitude, and so on. And then something happens. And when something happens, that employee is going to be a different employee. But most people feel, and let me just say this to the employers, most conflict that take place on the job is not job related. Let me just say that again. Most conflict that take place on the job is not job related, because that good employee who's been performing at a high level, that good employee who has a good attitude, leave work one day and go home and find out that the son is involved in drugs, either selling or using, that their daughter is pregnant, is not married, that that kid who is doing great in school and want to go to an Ivy League school or someplace and you don't have the funds to send them there. But it's any number of personal things that can take place from the time the person leave the job and go home and come back to work the next day. That same employee who is an outstanding employee come to work the next day, and you can look at that person and tell something is wrong, that they had some weight on their back they didn't have the day before. And that same person might walk right by you and not hear you say good morning. And that starts a conflict in its own itself. So what I'm saying, employers, think about this even with your employees, that good employee just don't change overnight unless something happens. And obviously there are things that happen when you go home, and there are sometimes when employees come to work the next day, they have the same kind of problem. They come to work the next day, and their husband haven't been home the night before, or their wife haven't been home the night before, and they bring that same baggage into the workplace, and it's baggage that they have no control over, and so they're not going to be the same employee when they get to work. So be able to sometime to understand those employees and be able to have a conversation with those employees so they understand. And when they have a confidential conversation with those employees, please don't spread the word. But that's just one of the things that I want you to know, because many folks feel like that when you go to work on a job, the old tradition was that leave your problems on the doorstep. But that just doesn't happen. That same person, and you can help make that employee, put that employee back into perspective by having a conversation with them about what happened. And many times they will tell you what happened, and when they tell you what happened, certainly it's confidential, and share it that way, and that employee will be a better employee. Now, let me just move. When we talk about conflict, we have to talk about what the definition of conflict really is. Mm-hmm. Conflict occurs when two or more parties believe that what each wants with what the other wants. The parties can be individuals, groups, organizations, or nations, as we can see what's happening today. It could be nations. Now, there are a lot of things that happen that causes conflict, and we very seldom think about what causes conflict. All we know that we end up in conflict. So let me just give you a few nuggets here in terms of what causes conflict. The number one culprit is faulty communication. When two people don't communicate, when a group of people don't communicate, it's always going to be a problem. Communication is the key to resolving conflict. And then there's the second one, is there's a difference in values. Everybody don't have the same values as you. Everybody. One of the things that I normally say, you hear people say a lot of time, if that was me, this is what I would do. If that was me, this is what I would do. You are raising people to your level, and everybody is not your level, and everybody don't have your same values. There's a difference in needs. Remember, we look at the workforce itself, or we look at a relationship. In a relationship, if you do something good, your wife or your husband do something good, tell them that they did something good. Tell them on the job, if someone is performing at a high level, tell them that they do. Because a lot of the things I'm talking about is preventive kind of stuff that you do before you get to conflict. And some people need to be told that you did a good job. Some people need to be told that I appreciate what you did for me. And then there's a difference in perception, a difference in assumptions, and a difference in assumptions. Those three things keep us in trouble all the time in conflict. Assumptions, perceptions, and assumption. So when people want to save themselves in a conflict, you hear the word, well, I assumed, or it was my perception that this took place. So I'm saying that think about these things that we talk about that causes conflict. If you're working on the job and you end up having competition for the same resources, and in this day and age on the job there's a tremendous competition for the same resources. But the key one, and the last one here, is simple misunderstandings. Simple misunderstandings. And when I say simple misunderstandings, that people sometimes just misunderstand. Maybe you said the wrong thing. Maybe I didn't intend to say the wrong thing. Maybe you did the wrong thing. But what I'm saying is that simple misunderstanding create problems that people cannot ever get back together. So one of the ways that I say that if in the event that you and your friend or your colleague or your significant others or whatever have a dispute, I'm going to give you 6 steps here that you can use to approach a person, because when we get in dispute with someone, we don't know how to approach them. We don't know how to come back and say, well, maybe I did it differently. Maybe I said the wrong thing. And people sometimes say, well, I don't have a way to get back. I'm never going to talk to them again. But if you have a friendship with someone, if you cannot get back together with that friend, then they never was a friend at first. But nobody can tell you or talk to you about how to get back together. So I'm going to give you 6 quick steps in terms of how to approach a person to get back together or start a conversation. The first thing you do is ask that person if you can talk. Hey, listen, Joe or John or Ann or Sue, can we have a conversation? We had some difficulty. Can we talk? All right? And 9 times out of 10, the person will say yes. They're going to roll their eyes at you. They're going to say yes because they think you're crazy, because people don't do these things. Can we have a conversation? If they say yes, don't you designate the time. You ask the person, what's a good time that we can get together? And don't do it when there's going to be something pressing. Don't do it when you're in a hurry. Don't do it at the end of the workday or something like that. Give yourself time. And if the person says, yes, we can do this, and you can agree upon a time, then that's the first step in addressing that problem. Number 2, you thank them for agreeing to sit down and talk. Number 3, when you sit down to talk, you only talk about their behavior. Only talk about their behavior, not finger pointing, not being accusatory or anything. Just talk about their behavior. Now, let me just back up for a moment while I'm on that. If you want to have this conversation with the person, please don't do it in what I call a bowl where everybody else is listening. Find a place that's conducive to problem solving where it's one-on-one and nobody else can hear you, because otherwise folks will be playing to the crowd. And when you find that place that's conducive to problem solving, try to find a place that doesn't have a window on it, because if so, the people know that you're at odds, and they're going to come and peep in the window. It's going to take away the strength of the discussion that you're going to have. And you're going to have a discussion that's going to be sincere, it's going to be open, and it's going to be a sincere discussion to hopefully get back together. So now, once you talk about the behavior of the person, not in a loud tone, but just in a tone that makes sense, in a monotone. And then the next one is give the person time to respond. Don't do all the talking. Give the person time to respond. And if you hear something that you don't like, don't get upset about what you hear when you do that. Because when I finish with this, I'm going to talk about what you need to do in order to be a problem solver. But what you do is listen to what the person is saying and listen. And sometimes some of these things sting. But if you're going to get back together, maybe they are listening. Maybe they are talking and telling you something that you're unaware of. Okay? The next step is to tell them the consequences of what can happen regarding their behavior. And it simply is, well, if we don't get this thing resolved, we will never be friends again. But tell them what the consequences are in a very soft tone. And once you do that, the next thing you do is thank them for agreeing to sit and talk to you. Thank them for doing that. Now, if you are able to, in that short period of time, reach a resolution or a partial resolution, then that relationship still have to be managed. What you do is that you set a date to come back again to maybe just to clarify or to make sure this is real, and to make sure that you are sincere and make sure that the other person is sincere. Those are the steps you use in terms of getting back with a person and to talk. All right. Now, during this conversation, I want you to do the 3 things that I talked to you about a week ago, about if you're going to be a problem solver, there are 3 things that you must do. In this whole process, of trying to resolve this dispute, you have to quickly do some self-examination. Look at yourself, examine yourself, and you simply say, could I have been just a little bit wrong in my approach? Could I have said the wrong thing to offend someone? Look at yourself, all right? The second one is probably more difficult than anyone. And this is why the second one is so difficult, is because what I am suggesting and urging you to do is to be able to exchange positions with the other side, with the other party. I don't mean change shares. I mean exchange position. And you say, given the same circumstances, given the same conditions, would I have done the same thing? Would I have done the same thing that that person did? But to be able to exchange positions, stand in their shoes, all right? And then be able to respond to it. Be able to, whatever you've done, be able to respond. But because when you exchange a position, it's hard to do. And the reason why it's hard to do is because when you're involved in this kind of conversation, what you end up doing is not listening, because you're mentally arguing and trying to give an intelligent response to what you're discussing. So remember, please remember, exchange positions with the other side. Now, it doesn't always mean that you have to change it now. But what happens is, when you exchange position with another party, you can sometimes feel it the same way they can. And the third one is this. The third one is develop good listening skills. All of us think that we have great listening skills, and we talk about it, and we think that we are the greatest in terms of listening. When I teach this class, I ask people, how many of you have good listening skills? And 90% of the class raise their hand that they have good listening skills. And yet, guess what? Once we go through the process of developing a program and talking about listening, they all realize then that they don't have good listening skills. Very few of us do. We have good arguing skills. We have other skills that we can use all the time when we're in a discussion with someone, so we don't be embarrassed. We mentally argue. And when you mentally argue with another person, it means then that you're not listening. So in order to do that, you have to shut down and listen to what the other side is saying and do a quick analysis of what they're saying before you respond. So now, I've given you the three major approaches to solving problems. One, self-examination, seriously self-examination, look in the mirror. Two, be able and capable of exchanging position with the other side. And three is to develop good listening skills. If you recall at the beginning, I said that the one that talked the loudest is very seldom heard. So the things that I've tried to give you today is just a scratch the surface in terms of how to resolve dispute. But the things I gave you at the beginning were prevented kind of things for you to prepare. If I'm going out to drive and I know there's a strong possibility that someone is going to cut me off, I already know what I'm going to do when they do that. And I know that if I'm going to the parking lot and someone put in front of me, that I'm not going to get upset by it because I already know what I'm going to do. And I want you to test some of these things that I'm talking about. Just test them and see if they work. And I can tell you that they work. The other thing that I want to end with is this. There's three quick things that I think that you need to hear again, and I'm going to repeat these as I go along. One is, one of the things in our country, we lack compassion for others. I want you to think about compassion in dealing with other people. If some of our young kids today had compassion for others, we wouldn't have as many killings because all of them know each other. So you know if you kill somebody, it's going to affect not just you, it's going to affect other people. That's number one. Number two, if you know in your heart that you did something wrong, there's nothing wrong with apologizing. It's not unmanlike. It's not unwomanlike to apologize. Our young people today feel that if I apologize, men and women, it's unwomanlike or it's unmanlike. I apologize. The third one certainly is forgiving. We have to learn to forgive. And forgiving is not for the other person. It's the forgiving is for you. Okay, Michelle, I'm finished.
Oh, that was awesome. Awesome, Dr. Brown. Question that came to mind for me, and that I've heard out there in TV land, is the issue of note-taking as being good attending behavior. Do you have any comments on if that bothers the other person when they're taking the notes? How do you handle that?
No,
if the note-taking itself bothers the other person.
The person would ask you, what are you writing? You can tell them, say, look, I want to hear what you got to say, and I want to get the facts. And the only way to get the facts is for me to write it down. That's for me. That's not for you. But I'm getting it. But in my experience, I have never had anyone say, I don't want you to take notes. You offer the same thing to them because you want to take control. So you say, listen, why don't you take a couple of sheets of paper here? Here's a pen, and you take notes. We're both going to take notes, and we're going to compare facts at the end. All of a sudden, you're trying to take the sting out of the discussion, and you're doing it because you're in control when you start to do that. But they can't tell you can't write because you want to know what the facts are.
No, that is awesome. That answers it. I really hear you saying, really make it very simple, keep it very light, and offer them, the other people, paper and pen as well.
Right.
Keep it simple.
You're on the same board. You're on the same level when you do that.
That's right.
But you know what? Right. When they ask you that, it means that you are in control because they are listening to what you are saying. And you want to be in control in that kind of discussion. You want to be in control, and they not know you're in control. Okay.
And could it be that they're responding because they're feeling that way, that they've lost control the moment you start taking notes? Is that possible?
No, but they start to become frightened, and people normally say, wait a minute, what are they writing? I better watch what I say. That's what you want them to do.
I see.
Because I might say something that they might want to sue me that I say. Yeah, it's all kind of things, but you're forcing them to start to think about what you're doing, not about what they're doing.
Right. That's right. That is awesome information. Loved it. Loved the 6 quick steps that you gave us. I wrote them down myself, and we are at the top of the hour. Is there any closing remark you want to give us? There's a lot of conflict during these holidays. Everyone grins and smiles, but you and I know there's a lot of conflict around these here family holidays.
Let me just suggest the holidays.
Yes.
In every family, there are some disputes that go on for years and years and years. Thanksgiving is the greatest day in the world to do this because that's a family day, all right? And I want you to keep in mind, you can't fire family. No matter what you say, you get sister, brother, mother, father, you can't fire them. I want you to use these 6 steps to someone that you haven't spoken to for the last 5 years at the family Thanksgiving dinner or at the family reunion. And use these steps to create a conversation with that person, because I will be willing to bet you my right pinky finger that in many cases the people don't even remember what they were angry about, but they don't know how to get back together. And just take them in a corner and pull them aside and just talk to them and say that we're family. That's one thing you can do in terms of there's someone in the family you're angry with. The second thing you can do is this, that if you're angry with someone in your family, your friends, or somebody else, take and start to put it in writing and write it like a letter and just get every point that angered you or that disturbed you. All right? And write it out. Write it and write it and write it in the most detailed way that you can. And then when you finish writing it, tear it up. Don't mail it. Because sometimes what you have to do, when you have things inside of you and they keep going through your mind, you need to get those things out on paper, but you don't need to give them to anyone. You're doing this for yourself. And when you finish all of this, invariably you'll find out that maybe I made some mistakes too. Maybe I should be asking for forgiveness. Maybe I should be apologizing for what happened. Because you take this same paper and apply those 3 steps.
That's
self-examination, right. All right? Reply the self-examination part of it. Apply the self-examination, apply the exchange position, and apply the third one, which did I really listen? Did I really hear the right thing? And keep in mind that we have to allow for mistakes, that people make mistakes. Something you did 5 years ago, you still was a little boy, a little girl. You didn't know. You made a mistake, but you don't know how to get back together. But some people say, well, you did me one time and that's it. But someone has the big person to start the conversation. But now remember, don't mail that letter that you wrote now, and don't give it to anybody. Because okay.
The writing is just for you.
That's right.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. We would like you to share how people can get a hold of your book. I believe it was just released. You want to share that information again?
Yes, the name of the book is that All Conflicts Can Be Resolved. And you can get it on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, or even at the local bookstores. You can pick it up. Or if you choose to, certainly you can contact me at this number, and I can get it to you. My number is 252-335-2439, 252-335-2439, or my cell number is 516-815-8679, 516-815-8679. My email address is hez38@aol.com. Either one of those ways you can reach me if you want to talk about it, or if you have some other things that's bothering you. I'm open sometimes to helping people resolve disputes, and we can sometimes do it by telephone or give some advice. You know, nothing I ever give is always ingrained. But if some things that you need to talk to someone about that you feel could be resolved, or you need some suggestion, use either one of those numbers in my email to just get in touch with me. All right?
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. There you have it, everyone. Hezekiah Brown, conflict resolution, family, community. And I know y'all going to need those skills this holiday weekend. Y'all be smiling and grinning and fighting at the same time. We know what y'all doing out there. But we love you. We wish you all a wonderful, wonderful holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Enjoy yourself. Let there be peace in your home. Thank you, Dr. Brown. You have the same. We'll see you here the Friday after. We're going to skip next Friday, Thanksgiving, and we're going to be back on same time, same bad channel. Thank you all.